Hello and welcome to the first live lesson of the Serbian language courses on YouTube. What's wrong with the Serbian verbs? This is going to be a chat about the verbal aspect. Hello, Sarah. And I'm going to be talking in English, and the examples are, of course, be in Serbian. So let's relax a little bit. And I would like you all to tell me where you are from. Where are you watching me from? That's the first question for you. Odakle ste? Dobar dan. Odakle si? And the second question for you, is English your native language? Are you a native English speaker, or did you learn English as your second language? Odakle si? I da li je engleski tvoj maternji jezik? And as I'm waiting for you to answer, I would like to tell you a little story about myself. Well, I started learning English when I was a kid. I was like 7 or 8 years old. And of course, the first things that I've learned were, basic words to say a book, a ball, basic conversational phrases, hello, good day, good afternoon, and stuff like that. And when I really started learning English was when I was in high school. That's when I first started learning about the English tenses. And I have another question for you. Whether you're a native English speaker or you learned English as a foreign language, do you know how many tenses are there in English? How many verbal tenses are there in English? Do you know? But don't check on the Google. Don't ask the Google first. Do you know it? If you think of it. So the most difficult thing for me when I learned English up to my late 30s were the English tenses. Why? Because in English, let me see if there is any answer here. No, nobody answered yet about the English tenses. You have no idea. Sarah, I'm sure you know. There are 12 English tenses, and in Serbian, we only have like 4 actively used tenses. So it was very difficult for me to wrap my mind around the English tenses. You guys have like 4 past tenses, 4 present tenses, and 4 future tenses. And we don't have that in Serbian. And I believe it would have been much easier for me to understand the tenses if I had someone to explain them to me using our Serbian verbal aspect. That's the reason I'm starting the story with this. Okay, so in Serbian, we only have 1 present tense. We only basically actively use 1 past tense and 2 future tenses. That's all. And we use only these 4 tenses to express everything that you express with your 12 English language tenses. Okay. So that's why I say that the verbal aspect is, the question is why I say, okay. Let me see the answers. Irac koji živi u Španiji, okay. British, live in England, but in Sweden. 12, hello Yvonne, of course, I know you know this. 12 English tenses. And Serbian would have definitely be easier for me if I could forget most of my native language tenses. Exactly, that's true, Yvonne. That's very, very well said. There's a Greek from Zemun. Zemun is a part of Belgrade, if you don't know. Hello. Varvara, dobar dan. Dobar dan. Mi obično pričamo na srpskom, ali danas malo na engleskom. Okay. All right. So first of all, the verbal aspect, Serbian verbal aspect, is definitely the most mind-boggling thing of the Serbian language for the majority of my students. I'd say like 85% of my students, and those who get it easily are either Greeks or Russians, because they have a similar feature. So if you don't speak Greek or Russian, you probably need some time to wrap your mind around the verbal aspect in Serbian. And my students, when they're faced with this, they often ask me, do native Serbian speakers make mistakes when they in this area with the aspect? And I say, of course they do. Rarely we do, but of course we do. Even I will sometimes make a mistake if I'm too tired, but then it just sounds wrong to us, and I feel the need to correct myself if I make these mistakes. And also one thing, I've been closely watching my 3-year-old son learning how to speak Serbian from the beginning, of course, and I've noticed that he's trying to use the aspect from the very beginning. He's experimenting, he's learning through trial and error. And also, I'm sure that you too, any Serbian language learner, should start getting familiar with the verbal aspect from the very beginning, not from the first basic things, but from the A1 level, definitely. All right, so is there anyone here who doesn't know what's the verbal aspect? Is there anyone who never heard of the verbal aspect? Do you all know what is it? I will tell you, the verbal aspect, this term refers to the phenomenon that verbs contain a notion of time. They have an inherent meaning, whether they're completed or they're a process in action, the process of doing this action that verb expresses. Okay. I know most of my followers, the people who read my articles and watch my videos, most of them, believe it or not, are from the United States. And I know majority of them sleeps at this moment, so they're not able to watch me now, but they will watch a replay. And many of them are actually grew up with the Serbian parents or grandparents, and they grew up hearing some Serbian constantly, and they have questions in their minds about the language, because they're noticing things and they don't know how to explain it, how to understand it. So I will use this as an example. So if you had a Serbian grandfather, you could hear him say, dolazimo, dolazimo. I will write this in the chat box. Dolazimo. Dolazimo. And you knew that meant we're coming. But then your grandpa might have said, and I will write this in the chat as well. Kad dođemo kući, čitaću ti knjigu. Kad dođemo kući, čitaću ti knjigu. When we come home, I'll read you a book. So on one hand, you have the verb dolaziti, when the grandpa said dolazimo, we're coming. And in the other sentence, we have kad dođemo, čitaću ti knjigu. That's the verb doći. Both of these verbs, let me write this down, dolaziti and doći, they both translate as to come in English. I have a grandma example as well. This was the grandpa example, but I have also a grandma example. So maybe your grandma said, jedi supu. Jedi supu. Eat your soup. And then again, your grandma could have said, pojedi supu, pa idemo napolje. Pojedi supu, pa idemo napolje. Eat your soup, and then we're going outside. So in this example as well, we have two verbs. We have jesti and pojesti. Jesti as in jedi supu. Pojesti is used in pojedi supu, pa idemo napolje. So both these verbs, jesti and pojesti, translate as to eat in English. So one could say that in Serbian we have 2 verbs for every verb that you have in English. Not 100% rule, but mostly. These are 2 different aspects of a verb. One aspect is imperfective. And this imperfective aspect refers to the process of doing the action, whether in the moment of speaking or in a given time in the past or in the future, or on a regular basis. So it talks about the process of evolving, of doing the action. And the other aspect is perfective, and that refers to the completion of the action. So I'm talking about the having the action done, completing it. And if you take a look at the grandpa's example, the first sentence actually means we're walking, so we're on our way. That's why we're coming. Dolazimo. And the second example means kad dođemo, when we come. This actually means when we're at home. That's the result of the action. When we are home, I'll read you a book. And if you take a look at the grandma example, the first sentence, jedi supu, actually means I want you to be eating your soup right now. So be in the middle of that action. Do it right now. And the second example actually means when your bowl is empty, when there's no more soup. This means, that's what I'm implying with pojedi supu. When you're finished with it, we're going out. Okay, so how to learn the verbal aspect? That's what you want to know the most as a Serbian language learner. How to learn that? Little by little and pair by pair. You will learn these verbs in pairs. So whenever you learn a new verb, for example, čitati, you can learn it with an example. Volim da čitam knjigu. Volim da čitam knjige. That's the verb čitati. And then you will learn it together with its pair, how to, the perfective pair, pročitati. Pročitala sam tvoj mail. That's the verb pročitati. Okay, that's the verb to read in English. So you learn 2 verbs, čitati, pročitati, to read. Yeah, just I will take a moment to tell you that I will definitely have a blog post with all these examples and all this written for you, and I will post a link below the video when it's published, so you don't have to take notes now. You will get the link to the blog post with all this information gathered for you. Okay, now I can see I have some questions here. Let me read it quickly. Yvonne says, I find that my knowledge of German helps me understand the verbal aspect. Jesti, essen, and pojesti, aufessen. Admittedly, this might not work every time, but it does help. Okay, of course, Yvonne, of course, you can also use English language. I will talk about this later. Okay. Sarah says, could pojesti be translated as like eat up and jesti as eat? Definitely. Not 100%, but this will help you understand the meaning and the usage of it. Yes, to pojesti means to eat it all up, to eat everything, basically. Okay. Jesti and pojesti are another pair of verbs that you're going to learn as to eat in English. So for to eat, you will learn 2 verbs, jesti and pojesti. And as a beginner, and later, not only as a beginner, you will learn these pairs of verbs, and that's how you're going to have them in your mind. That's the only way to learn the verbal aspect. Because rules, there are no basically 100% rules of how to make perfective aspect of verbs. And I will talk about some patterns later, but the only way is to learn the 2 verbs together. Okay, So at this stage, when you're at A1, A2 level of Serbian, what you need to do is to become familiar with this idea, because it's a different way of thinking and expressing notion of time in verbs. And later, as you learn more of it, you will become more confident and learn more examples. So it will settle down, in a few years, hopefully. Okay, but now the most important task for you is to remember both aspects as two forms, basically two aspects or two forms of one verb, of the same action, of the same thing. It's important for you to be able to recognize them when you hear them. So if you see a verb popiti, even if you don't know it, you can intuitively conclude that it's about piti. It must be perfective of piti. Piti, to drink, popiti, also to drink. Piti and popiti. Okay, so the question is inevitable. Why we need these two verbal aspects in Serbian? And this question takes us back to the beginning of our story. The main purpose of language is communication. That's why the language exists, to transmit ideas and to exchange ideas and thoughts, right? So communication. And if a language keeps or saves a feature, it's because it serves the communication. And if people and their ideas and their daily actions are the same everywhere in the world, then different languages express the same things, the same ideas in any language. But they use different means for that. Languages have developed different means for the same ideas. And in this instance, what we lack in Serbian are the English continuous tenses or progressive tenses. So maybe, I know there are some linguists among you, but probably there are some people who don't really know exactly what continuous or progressive tenses are. So I will tell you in plain English. So these are all the tenses, all the verbs that you express with ing. I have been doing, I'm watching, I will be wondering, and so on. So these are the continuous or progressive tenses with the gerund, with the ing ending in the verb. I'm going, I've been studying, and so on. In this case, in Serbian, we use the imperfective verbal aspect to express the same idea of a continuous action that you use the continuous tenses in English. And this goes only for the past and the future tenses. Pay attention, only for the past and the future tenses. Let's analyze some examples here. I will copy and paste again in the chat. Ja sam jeo supu kada je ona došla. And here, I will mark 1, the imperfective verb, and number 2 for perfective verbs. Ja sam jeo supu. I was eating soup. Kada je ona došla, when she came. And I think this refers to Sarah's question. This is what you asked me, and I just saw your question today. But this answers your question. So we use ja sam jeo supu. I was eating my soup. You use continuous tense in English. We use imperfective verb in Serbian to say that was a lasting action. We are talking about the process of this action. We were doing the action. In the Romance languages, you would use imperfect in French, imperfect, or in Italian as well. And we use the perfective verb ona je došla. The perfective tense, the perfective aspect cuts through the imperfect action. Ona je došla. So this was a lasting action. Ja sam jeo supu. I was doing it. And all of a sudden, as I was eating my soup, poof, she bumped in. She entered. Ona je došla. She came. The same way in the Romance languages, you use imperfect tense for lasting action, and the passé composé in French, or what was it in Italian? I just can't think. It's a similar tense, to cut through the action. Okay, another example. Ja sam pojeo supu dok je ona dolazila. Ja sam pojeo supu dok je ona dolazila. Here we have a kind of opposite example. So I ate up my soup, I finished my soup while she was coming. So her coming was a lasting action, and I finished my soup. Again, I finished it was the perfective verb, and she was coming, long-lasting action. The process of doing the action is the imperfective verb. And you can see that as well in English, because in English, you use the past simple, I ate my soup, while she was coming. She was coming, a continuous tense, past continuous. She was coming. Okay. Now, you can see here how the perfective verbs are used to emphasize the notion of completeness of the action. It's complete, it's finished. Even if they talk about starting the action, you know, once starting the action is also one moment. So it's complete, it's short. I started. I may have continued afterwards, but if I'm talking about the moment of starting it, that's also perfective verb. Okay. However, so I gave examples in the past tense because it's easier to understand in the past tense, definitely. In the present tense, I will now jump and tell you, because many of my students make this mistake. They're trying to compose the English tenses in the Serbian language. We don't have that. Remember that we don't have that many tenses as you do. So the imperfective verbs in the present tense are used for the English simple past, present simple, present continuous, and present perfect. All three present tenses in English are expressed with the Serbian imperfective verb present tense. Okay, one by one. And I will just give me a second to jump here, how to use Serbian verbal aspect. Yeah, okay. So first example, what you express with English present simple. I'm going to write, put it in the comments. English present simple examples. We use imperfect as verbs, imperfect aspect verbs for English present simple. Example, svako jutro pijem kafu. Svako jutro pijem kafu. It's a repetitive action. Every morning I drink coffee. It's what I normally do. So we use pijem and not popijem. However, if it's a matter of style, I could also use, for repetitive action, I could also use the perfective verb. I could also say svako jutro popijem kafu, but that's just going to confuse you. So if you can hear the Serbs, if you talk with the Serbs, you will hear them say that, but just don't use it yet. Okay? Use the imperfective form. And we also use it to express the eternal truths. For example, voda ključa na 100 stepeni Celzijusa. Voda ključa na 100 stepeni Celzijusa. Water boils at 100 degrees of Celsius. That's an eternal truth. So we use the present simple in English, or Serbian imperfect present. And that was easy. Another one is English present continuous. For present continuous, we also use the same verb. For example, upravo držim čas. Let's put this in English present continuous. We're talking about English present continuous. Upravo držim čas. At this moment, I'm delivering the lesson. So what I'm doing right now, I'm doing it in the English language. In Serbian, I just say imperfect verb. Držim čas. Pijem kafu. And also another, Sarah, this was also your question. We also use imperfect verbs in the present tense to express the near future, what you plan to do tomorrow or later this afternoon. For example, sutra putujem na more. Sutra putujem na more. That's the English present continuous. I'm traveling to the sea. Later, I'm going outside. So if we talk about a planned action, we also use imperfect verb in the present tense. Sometimes my students try to make the present continuous tense. So they say something like, ja sam radim, I am working. But remember not to ever do this in Serbian, okay? Don't do it. It just doesn't make sense in Serbian. And the third, did I put this in English present? Yeah, English present continuous. Yeah, I put it. Putujem. Putujem is imperfective. Yeah, sure. Da. Putujem je imperfective. And the third variant is the English present perfect. English present perfect is also when we use the present of imperfect verbs. And again, with examples. Učim srpski 4 meseca. Učim srpski 4 meseca. This little sentence means I've been learning Serbian for 4 months. Okay, this is also something that English speakers usually try to create in Serbian, but no, we don't have I've been doing this. We just see it as a present tense activity. I don't know where it started. I will tell you a time when it started and it still lasts. If it's still valid, that's present for us. That's present of imperfective verb for us. Okay. Time is flying. Vreme leti. Vreme leti. Another eternal truth in the present of imperfective verbs. Vreme leti. It went by very quickly. Let me see what's the most important thing to tell you. Yeah. Would you like me to tell you about the patterns of the verbal aspect? How to recognize perfective and imperfective? Most Romance languages work like that too. I think English is the odd one out. English language has a lot of Romance vocabulary, but it's actually a Germanic language. It's not a Romance language. All right. Okay. I want to give you 4 rules for recognizing the verbal aspect. How to know which one is perfective and which one is imperfective. Okay, first of all, first of all, most verbs you learn first when you start Serbian are imperfective. So I'd say most verbs you know are imperfective. That's usually the basic form of a verb. Like, for example, ići, gledati, misliti. These are all imperfective verbs. So most of the verbs you know are imperfective. Okay, so if we take verb ići as an imperfective verb, then we come to the second rule. The second rule says, then we use prefixes to make its perfective aspect. We make perfective verbs with a prefix. For example, ići, from ići we make otići. It means to go. And then otići, to go away. That's what I said. You can also see this in English. Go and go away. For example, ići, otići. gledati, from gledati, we add a prefix and we get pogledati. Gledati, pogledati. To look, and then to take a look. Okay, and misliti, from misliti we get pomisliti, or let's take razmisliti. Misliti, razmisliti. Misliti, to think, razmisliti, to think over in order to get to a conclusion or to a decision. Razmisliti. That's the second rule. So we use prefixes to make perfective aspect. The third rule says that some verbs are perfective in their basic form. I'd say littler verbs, less verbs, how to say that? Less verbs are perfective in their basic forms, but some important verbs as well. So kupiti and prodati, to buy and to sell. Kupiti is perfective and its basic form. So what we do, we add an infix to make an imperfective variant of it. So from kupiti, we get kupovati. They both mean to buy. Prodati and prodavati, to sell. Prodati, perfective. Prodavati, imperfective. So we use infixes to create imperfective verbs. And there are some possible infixes. They usually have va. And here, ava, iva, ova, eva. Whenever you notice this in a verb, know that it's imperfective. Prodavati, kupovati, putovati, verovati, and so on. Many verbs. Also, there are some pairs like this, like for example, setitise, I sećatise. Setitise, sećatise. I came to the fourth rule. Fourth rule is about setitise, sećatise. For example, to remember. Primiti I primati, to receive. Primiti, primati, setitise, sećatise. When you have this kind of pair of verbs, you can be sure that a is imperfective. So when you see a, know that that verb that has an a is imperfective. Setitise, perfective. Sećatise, imperfective. Primiti, perfective. Primati, imperfective. You will see more examples in the blog post after. Okay. All right. So these are 4 rules how to recognize the aspects, the perfective and imperfective aspects. Okay. And in the end, I want to talk a little bit about the creation of verbs and families of verbs, because with this way of creating verbs, we create big families, sometimes very large families of verbs. And I will talk about that in my future blog posts and videos. But here, just to give you an important example with verb ići. And I will start with English here. If you take, for example, the English verb to go, which means ići in Serbian, to go. English language adds different prepositions to form phrasal verbs, and sometimes in that way the meaning changes drastically. You get a completely new verb. For example, go means to go. Go out, izaći in Serbian. The meaning didn't change too much, right? To go and go out. The meaning remains of movement, just changes where we move. But then you say to go away in Serbian, that's otići. Again, the meaning changed a little bit, but not drastically. But then if you say to go on, you get a whole new meaning, right? It doesn't really, it doesn't have to do anything with going anymore, right? It has to do with talking, for example, or to continue doing an action, right? So in English, you have phrasal verbs, and that's very similar to the way we use prefixes in Serbian. So if we keep up with the example with verb ići, to go, sometimes, you know, we add a preposition, but then it changes phonetically a little bit, so we write it differently. So I will copy paste here. I have a list, a small list of several verbs, compound of ići. Okay, it doesn't work like this. Okay. Maybe I can find it here. Just give me a second to copy paste this. No, I can't. All right, I will write. We use preposition do combined with ići to create doći. Do, ići, doći. So the one e disappeared, but it means from. Then we use od, preposition od plus ići to create otići. Od and do means from and to. So to go from, otići, to go away, actually means to leave or to go away. And to go to, like to come to, doći. If you remember od and do, from and to, you can remember the meaning of the verbs, doći, otići. Then also we use prepositions u and is. U with ići creates ući, to come in. Is with ići creates izaći or izići, to go out, to exit. So we create new verbs with these prepositions, and this is very logical. And I can tell you that all these prepositions, od, do, u, and is, can work with any verb of movement, with putovati, to travel, seliti se, to move house, and so on. So any verb of movement, to bring, to carry. With to carry, we make verbs. So with many verbs that involve movement of yourself or moving other things, you can use these prepositions, od, do, u, is, anyway. And then we have another verb, for example, na with ići. That creates verb naći, and that means to find. So it's a very different meaning. It doesn't have to involve moving or going, but it means to find. Okay, I have a question. Just let me read it. Does is always change verbal roots that start with e, like to izaći? I will think of that. I don't know. Can't answer now. I would have to think of some examples, and I will let you know. Okay. All right. So now we created a whole bunch of new verbs. We have 5 new verbs, and if you think of the rule number 2 from the previous, what we talked previously, you know that all these new verbs are perfective, and they're changed. They're different from the basic verb we started from, ići. So what do we do now? We need another verb for all these new verbs. We need new verbs to cover their imperfective meaning. So what we do is we add an infix or a different ending in this case. Usually an infix, but here in this case it's a different ending. We add an imperfective ending, laziti, right? So we get from doći, we get dolaziti. From otići, we get odlaziti. And from all the other verbs, once you know this pattern, all the other verbs created from ići work like that. So we have dolaziti, doći, dolaziti, otići, odlaziti, ući, ulaziti, izaći, izlaziti, naći, nalaziti, and so on. There's a whole bunch of all these verbs created from ići, and they all follow the same pattern, at least in the infinitive. Okay, so this was one family of of the verbs, it's not covered. There's a whole more verbs of verb ići, and I'm thinking maybe I will create new blog posts and new videos dedicated exactly to the families of the verbs and the words. Okay, not only verbs, then we go on from verbs and create nouns, but that's a whole nother story. But you have two important nouns, and I want to tell you here about them. That's from izlaziti. I'm sure you've seen the word, if you travel to Serbia, you've seen izlaz. Do you know what izlaz means? Huh? Can you recognize it if you don't know it? And ulaziti, from the verb ulaziti, we have the verb ulaz. Ulaz. Do you know what ulaz means? Can anyone answer? If you travel to Serbia, I'm sure you've seen this word, ulaz. The exit. Yeah, to exit. Izlaziti, to exit. Yeah, izlaz, your exit, where you go out, the way out, exit, right? And ulaz is entrance. Ulaziti, to enter. Ulaz, entrance. Okay. All right. So remember, time flies really quickly, and I wanted to talk about other things as well. I hope you remember about the present tense, what I told you, to always use the imperfective verb in the present tense. That's the safest thing. Just skip the perfective for now. There are some special situations where we can use perfective verbs. Now I want to tell you about how to use the verbal aspect with modal verbs, and that covers the future tense and the past tense. So with the modal verbs, it's very easy. And I will explain with the examples. Hoću da pišem članak and hoću da napišem članak. We have a modal verb hteti, to will, to want, hoću, I want, da pišem članak, and I want to da napišem članak. What's the difference? When I use the imperfective verb, I'm telling you what I want to do, what I want to be doing right now. I want to do that. Hoću da pišem. Hoću da pišem članak. That's the action I want to be involved in. And if I tell you hoću da napišem članak with the perfective verb, that means what I want to achieve. That's the result that I want to achieve. I want to have this article written. I want to finish it. I want to do it, to finish it, right? Okay. And this conforms with the past tense and with the future tense. The same rule. In the past tense, if you want to talk about the continuous, right, the doing of the action or the process of the action, then you use the imperfective verbs. If you want to talk about the moment of starting, the moment of finishing, of having completed the action, or having the results of the action, remember the soup, the grandma's soup, then you use the perfective verb. For example, if I tell you, pisala sam jedan novi članak juče. And if I tell you, pisala, what was it? Yeah. And the future tense together with the past tense. Pisala sam jedan novi članak juče I pisat ću jedan novi članak sutra. In both these examples, the first one is in the past tense, the second in the future tense. With the imperfective verb, I'm telling you what was the action, what I've been doing in the past, or what's the action that I plan to be doing in the future. I'm not talking about the result. That's my activity. I'm talking about the activity. On the other hand, if I tell you with the perfective verb, napisala sam jedan novi članak juče, you know that I finished it. I wrote a new article yesterday. I'm done with it. I finished it. And same thing, if I tell you napisat ću jedan novi članak sutra, that means I'm going to finish it tomorrow. Maybe I will start tomorrow, but I also intend to finish it tomorrow. I will have it written. I definitely plan to finish it. All right. Of course, someone said, yeah, I will try to save this video. This is the first time I'm doing this on YouTube, so hopefully I will manage to save it and save it for you. And definitely you have my new blog post that you can read all the examples and everything a little bit more organized probably than I delivered live. All right. And now I want to finish with a brilliant sentence of one of my students. Learning the Serbian verbal aspect is imperfective. Learning the Serbian verbal aspect is imperfective. This is a brilliant description, and it was a delight to hear it from one of my students. So what does it mean? It means that the verbal aspect is not something you can sit down and learn in a few lessons or exercises. You think of it as a long-lasting, loving relationship with verbs. So first you meet, then you get acquainted, then you start becoming a bit closer every time you meet. Every day by day you become closer and closer. And as more time you spend together, you get to know each other better and love each other more. That's your relationship with a verbal aspects. That's why a student of mine said, learning the verbal aspect is an imperfective. That's an imperfective process. All right. So that's about what I wanted to tell you today. If you have any other questions that I didn't answer today, ask now, or you can always send me an email, write me in my here on YouTube or in my Facebook group, wherever. You can ask me a question and I will answer to it. Thank you all for being today with me. I will post the link to my new article once I finish it here on YouTube. And yeah, that's about it. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification button so you get notified about the new videos that I will publish. Participate in my Facebook groups, on my Facebook page. And yeah, that's all. Thank you very much. Hvala vam svima puno. I vidimo se drugi put. Ćao, prijatno.